Let's talk first about some things that went right globally and generally in 2024. We've been highlighting these a bit in our shorter podcast, the Progress Report, where we try to draw some attention to news that all of us may have missed in the sea of news of bizarre Trump appointments or wonderful Trump appointments, depending on which side of the political spectrum you find yourself. But we will also, I think, try to look at what went right during the year. So, what say you, Ms. Varvaloucas?
Okay, I'm going to start with my favorite one in my list of the best things that happened in the United States this year. I'm going to start with my favorite because it was new to me. No substitute for novelty here. And I thought that some of the details on this were really kind of fun and fantastic. So I think people will very much so remember the fight for 15 kind of. For whatever reason, I associate that with the rise of AOC. I guess those were all around the same time. There was a very strong movement to get the minimum wage in various states to $15 per hour. In 2024, we did indeed have 22 states that raised their minimum wage. This is from legislation that was passed, in 2023, went into effect in 2024. We also had Alaska and Missouri vote in November to increase the state's minimum wage to $15 per hour. And Oxfam actually did a recent report on how dramatically and quickly this landscape has changed. Of course, if you look up the original Oxfam report, it's like people in the US aren't being paid enough. This is a crisis. And I think there's certainly an argument to be made that there are lots of places where it's still not $15 an hour, depending on where you live. $15 an hour really might not be cutting it. That's certainly a discussion to be had. However, things really have changed very quickly, very fast. 13% of US workers now earn under $15 per hour, which is a much smaller figure than I think a lot of people would expect, because that is down from nearly 32% in 2022. So that is a massive percentage shift between 2022 and 2024. Of course, we have to account for inflation here as well, but still, wages have been rising apace. So there has been so much progress. This is from an Axios article. I love this detail. There's been so much progress in the fight for 15 that the advocacy group called Fight for 15 actually changed its name. They're like, all right, the fight is over, I suppose. They are now Fight for a Union, which I can definitely get behind. I can definitely support. But the $15 per hour movement really succeeded. And I feel like they deserve a lot of credit for that they are not really receiving.
For those of you who are rolling your eyes, who are devotees of Hayek and Milton Friedman and Ayn Rand and feel like this whole minimum wage actually creates economic problems. I mean, there's a whole free market economic argument against a mandated minimum wage. And we're not going to get into those here. I'm just genuflecting in the direction of those who roll their eyes about this. It is quite fascinating if you think about a place like Missouri, where you used to think these were partisan things, right? That this would divide on Democrat, Republican divisions. And I guess traditionally this was seen as more of a left liberal statist move of guaranteeing a minimum wage. And all the free marketers who used to be Republicans would have opposed this vociferously. And then you have a state like Missouri, which goes for Republicans in the state house, the president, Senate races by double-digit margins, but also passes a minimum wage floor and a right to choose referendum. So like all these things are getting muddled in the American political context where people are perfectly comfortable voting. In this case, kind of rock rib Republican, but at the same time for a woman's right to choose and a minimum wage. And obviously that poses, if you're a Democrat, that poses challenges because that traditional breakdown is clearly not anymore in place and has in fact broken down. I understand the theoretical arguments against the minimum wage. That, it crowds out other labor. It makes it harder for teens to work. It hurts small businesses that would otherwise, I guess, be able to hire people more inexpensively. And we could segue from this now to, a topic that we'll talk about later, which is this whole question of immigration, illegal immigration, or undocumented immigration, which has been one way people deal with the minimum wage, is to hire people who are not subject to the same laws. But as a just purely like there is a minimum amount that human beings need to be above the poverty level, an amount that's probably too little, meaning the statistical poverty level probably should be higher given what the cost of living is in most places. this kind of salutes that. I don't know that I agree with the unionization. I think there's a lot of positive role for unionization in larger companies in traditional contexts, and it's a much more questionable need and or utility in nonprofits and other kinds of organizations where I'm not sure the union laws either help the workplace dynamics or are necessary given the nature of the work. But all that being said, that is something I would certainly celebrate this year.